An intern fell asleep on a stranger's shoulder, not knowing he was CEO. The bus door side opened and Ava Bennett shuffled in, every step heavy with bone-deep fatigue. The night air outside felt cool and clean, but the bus was warm, crowded, and stale, packed with tired faces heading home. Hugging her tote close, she scanned for a free spot. Her head pounded. Her feet pulsed after a brutal 12-hour shift at the marketing firm where she was interning. Streetlights smeared across the fog windows, tossing shaky strips of brightness over the passengers. Then she saw it, one empty seat in the middle row. She slid down the aisle without thinking and dropped into it, breathing out like she'd been holding her breath all day. Only after she settled did she notice the man beside her. He looked early 30s in a tailored navy suit, tied loosened like he'd been fighting it since noon. His dark hair was just messy enough to look like he'd raked his hand through it too many times. A sharp jaw, clear green eyes, and a quiet, cool presence. He said nothing, simply watched the blur of the city through the glass. Ava barely registered him. She was spent, mind buzzing from endless meetings and the pressure to prove she belonged. The bus bumped over a pothole. She sighed, let her eyelids drop, and promised herself she'd rest for only a second. The next jolt tipped her head sideways. Without realizing, she sank against a stranger's shoulder, cheek pressed to the smooth fabric of his jacket, the engine's hum and the gentle sway rocking her into deeper sleep. Cole Whitaker, the CEO of one of the city's largest business groups, went rigid at the unexpected weight. He glanced down at the young woman, now using him as a pillow. His first instinct was to shift away, but he didn't. She looked wrecked, face soft with sleep, a few chestnut strands stuck to her cheek, lips slightly parted as she breathed. The way she'd simply folded against him, unguarded in a world that rarely was, struck him as oddly endearing. Across the aisle, a man in a sleek black suit, nearly invisible in the dim glow, leaned in and whispered, "Sir, should I wake her?" Cole's mouth twitched. He gave the slightest shake of his head. "No," he said, voice even. "Let her sleep?" The assistant, Miles, hesitated. "But, sir—" Cole's calm look shut him up. The bus rolled on, a low chorus of chatter and honks filling the space. Ava, blissfully unaware of whose shoulder she'd borrowed, sighed in her sleep and nestled an inch closer. Cole let out an amused breath. Peace didn't last. The bus braked hard. Ava stirred, frowning, and blinked into focus. For a second she couldn't place where she was. Then everything rushed back. Bus, stranger, shoulder. Worse, she recognized the expensive suit, the sharp profile. "Oh my gosh," she blurted, jerking upright so fast she almost bumped his nose. He lifted one eyebrow, more entertained than annoyed. I'm so sorry," she stammered, cheeks blazing. She'd just napped on a total stranger, a very attractive stranger. Before he could answer, she looked out the window and froze. Her stop, it had come and gone. "Wait, no." She scrambled for her bag, and in the rush her elbow clipped a paper cup in the holder beside him. The lid popped, and dark coffee splashed across his crisp white shirt. Ava gasped. "Oh no." Cole glanced down at the spreading stain. Face unreadable. Miles straightened, tense. Ava yanked tissues from her bag and, in panic, dabbed at his shirt. "I'm so sorry. I'll pay for dry cleaning, or I can—" Cole suddenly laughed, low, warm, and unexpected. She stared at him, stunned. "Don't worry," he said, green eyes lit with amusement. "If anything, I owe you. That nap looked pretty comfortable." Ava groaned, covering her face. She fled the bus a minute later, clutching her bag, heart racing from sheer humiliation. Falling asleep on a stranger was bad. Soaking him in coffee? Next level awful. She'd apologized over patting at his shirt like that would fix anything. But everything had blurred with how exhausted she was. By the time she sprinted down her block, the night felt like a jagged, embarrassing dream. The next morning, Ava tugged at the blazer over her blouse and stared at her reflection until her nerves steadied. Today mattered. It was intern presentation day. After weeks of work, the interns would pitch their ideas to the senior team. She'd spent night after night refining her deck, hungry to prove herself. If she nailed it, She might just land a full-time role. She grabbed her laptop and headed out. The glass-walled conference room felt tight with tension when she slipped in. A handful of interns sat at the long, polished table, whispering under their breath. At the far end, a row of executives, clean lines, graceful watches, practiced faces. Power hung in the air. Ava's stomach tightened. This was it. She hadn't even settled when the main door swung open. The room hushed. A man in a sharp navy suit stepped in, presence snapping every eye's way. Ava turned and nearly forgot to breathe. The man from the bus. Coffee on shirt man. Except he wasn't just anyone. He was Cole Whitaker, CEO of the entire company. Cold washed through her. Cole took his seat at the head, polished and controlled. If he recognized her, he didn't show it. Ava felt weightless, like her soul had slipped out to watch from the ceiling. How was this real? She risked another glance. He rested one elbow on the table, fingers tapping lightly. A flicker of humor glinted in those green eyes, but he stayed quiet. Did he not remember? Or was he pretending? The thought sent a shiver through her. "Good morning, everyone," Cole said, calm and clear. "Let's get started. I'm looking forward to what you prepared." Ava's pulse thudded. This was not the version of today she'd planned. One by one, the interns presented, some shaky, some steady. Ava forced her focus back, pushing her panic down. Then it was her turn. She smoothed her blouse and walked to the front. Even before she spoke, she could feel Cole's eyes on her. "Good morning," she began, voice level despite the storm inside. "I'm Ava Bennett, and I'll be sharing a digital marketing plan to grow engagement with Gen Z consumers." As she spoke, rhythm returned. The room narrowed to her and her work. She moved through the slides, how trends had shifted, what the data showed, why retention mattered, and how a modern campaign could lift the brand. By the final slide, she'd found a steady confidence. "Thank you," she said, stepping back. Silence, then polite applause. Relief washed in until Cole leaned forward. "Impressive," he said, casual but intent. "But I have a question." Ava tensed. Of course he did. "You said our current outreach misses with Gen Z," he continued. "But our TikTok engagement rose 27% last quarter. With that in mind, what data set supports your claim?" The room tightened. A few interns exchanged looks. Ava felt heat crawl up her neck. A test. She drew a breath. "Great point," she said, standing taller. "That 27% is largely driven by short-form influencer clips. But our long-term brand engagement, the content that turns viewers into loyal customers, dropped 15%. My plan targets that gap. It focuses on retention over quick spikes." A beat passed. Then the corner of Cole's mouth lifted. A near smirk. "Well argued," he said with a small nod. Questions from another exec followed, pulling the room onward. Ava returned to her seat, still feeling his gaze. And now she knew. He remembered. When the final intern wrapped, Ava let herself breathe. She had done it. Cole's question had rattled her, but she'd held the line, and he'd noticed. Still, the way he'd watched her all hour made her uneasy. As people gathered their things, she saw Miles, the assistant from the bus, heading her way. "Ms. Bennett," he said, polite but unreadable. Mr. Whitaker would. "Like to see you." Ava blinked. "Me?" He nodded. A few interns overheard and tried not to stare. Ava squared her shoulders and followed Miles through the glossy hallways. Cole's corner office surprised her. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline, and while the furniture was modern, the space didn't feel cold. A framed photo, a vintage watch sitting on a book, a leather notebook with wear on the edges. Details that felt human. Cole stood at the window, hands in his pockets. He didn't speak at first. Then, without turning, he asked, "Do you always handle pressure questions that well?" Ava paused and said, "Only when the person asking is trying to throw me off." He chuckled, finally facing her, arms folded. The distant, untouchable CEO from the boardroom softened into something more curious. "I asked you here because I have a proposal," he said. "There's a project I'm overseeing personally. It needs fresh eyes." Your presentation showed me you think differently, and I want that on my team. Ava's stomach flipped. You want me on your team? As my temporary assistant, he clarified. Just for this project. You'd work directly with me, help shape the strategy and present at the end. The room seemed to tilt. This was huge. Most interns never got FaceTime with executives, much less the CEO. But it also sounded almost too perfect. Why her? Did he remember the bus? Was this some kind of power game? Or did he truly value her work? Mr. Whitaker, Cole, he said easily. If we're working together, skip the formality. The casual tone threw her. Was he like this with everyone or just with her? This is unexpected, she managed. His mouth twitched. Is that a yes? Ava waited. This could change everything. Working with Cole Whitaker could open doors she didn't even know were there. It could also bring complications. One she didn't see coming until she stepped back into the intern bullpen. Whispers flew before she sat down. She got called to his office. Probably just routine. No, I heard he offered her a spot himself. Ava kept her eyes on her screen. Then came the snicker from a nearby desk. Let's be real, being pretty helped. Her fingers stopped above the keys. Heat pricked her face. She had busted herself for weeks, delivered a tight pitch, and faced the CEO's pushback without flinching. But the first story that spread, that she was chosen for her looks, not her data, not her ideas, just her face, jaw tight. She kept her expression calm. If they wanted to underestimate her, fine. She'd let results do the talking. Working directly with Cole turned out to be both a gift and a grind. He was sharp and relentless, cutting through clutter in seconds and spotting issues before anyone else. He didn't hover, but he pushed. Good start. How do we make it stronger? Trust your gut, but tie it to better numbers. Don't tell me what others are doing. Tell me what they're not doing. Ava had thought she knew pressure. She didn't, yet she grew under it. She soaked up everything, getting better daily. For once, she didn't feel like just an intern. She felt like part of something real. And Cole, being Cole, never missed a chance to tease. One afternoon, after a fast brainstorm, he leaned back with a glint in his eye. I was wondering when you'd nap in here, he said lightly. Want a pillow this time? Ava choked on her coffee. I am never living that down, am I? Not a chance, he said, a slow smile forming. She covered her face. I was exhausted. He laughed. Oh, I know. You drooled on my shoulder, remember? Her mouth fell open. I did not. He just raised a brow. She groaned. I hate you. No, you don't. She tossed a crumpled napkin at him. Late one evening, most floors dark and quiet, Ava passed the main conference room and saw a light still on. She peeked in. Cole sat alone, not his usual confident self. Elbows on the table, hands clasped, eyes on a worn photo in front of him. Ava hesitated. It wasn't her business. Still, her feet moved. She stepped inside. He didn't notice until she laid a gentle hand on his shoulder. Hey, she said softly. You okay? He tensed, surprised by the touch. For a heartbeat, she thought he'd pull away. Instead, he exhaled, a faint smile tugging at his mouth. I'm fine, he said, though his voice held something he didn't name. She glanced at the photo, but he slipped it into his pocket before she could see. She could have asked. Something told her not to. Silence felt kinder. A week later, she walked into a high-stakes meeting feeling solid. She had polished the projections, checked the figures twice, and backed every slide with sources. It wasn't enough for everyone. One senior executive, old school to the bone, Graham Voss, barely let her finish before taking aim. This data is weak, he said, flipping through her packet. Your forecasts are too rosy. The plan reads naive. Frankly, I don't know why we're spending time on it. Cold drained from Ava's face to her fingertips. She had expected questions, not open disrespect. She kept her tone steady. I understand your concern, Mr. Voss. If you look at the trend analysis on page 7, he cut in, voice hard. It's sloppy. You don't understand this industry. Her grip tightened on her laptop. Before she could answer, Cole spoke. That's enough. He hadn't raised his voice. He didn't need to. The room went still. Ms. Bennett's analysis tracks real-time behavior, he said, calm but unmistakably firm. I trust her judgment. If you have a concern, bring facts, not condescension. A pause. Voss's face shifted, annoyed then careful. Of course, he muttered, eyes back on the pages. Ava sat stunned. Cole had backed her, publicly, not because he had to, because he believed her work deserved respect. For the first time since she joined, she felt like she truly belonged. She wasn't sure when the shift happened. Maybe it was the late nights when the line between boss and someone who gets you blurred. Maybe it was the way Cole watched her sometimes, like she was the only voice in a crowded room. Maybe it was that meeting when he stood up for her and made her feel seen. But somewhere along the way, Ava started falling for him, and that was a problem. Cole Whitaker wasn't just any guy. He was a CEO, wealth, power, a world she didn't live in, so she did the only thing that felt safe. She buried it. She told herself it didn't matter. She focused on the work. She reminded herself she was here to build a career, not catch feelings for someone far out of reach. Ignoring it got harder when she realized he wasn't totally immune either. Cole never crossed a line, but there were moments, small ones, his gaze lingering when he thought she wasn't looking, his voice softening when they were alone, the sharp edge fading, the way he seemed steadier with her nearby. One evening, while gathering a toppled stack of papers, her fingers brushed his. The air shifted. Neither of them moved. Then he cleared his throat and stepped back. Be more careful next time, he said, cool again. It stung. She pretended it didn't. She told herself she'd imagined it. She needed to move on, fast. Then came the conversation she never meant to hear. The floor was quiet, the hour late, and she was headed past his office when voices made her pause, just for a second. So what are you doing with her? A man's voice asked. Ava froze. Cole's reply followed, low. What do you mean? She's not just another intern to you. I see how you look at her. Silence stretched. Then Cole sighed. She's different. A knowing chuckle. That sounds like trouble. Cole let out a breath. You think I don't know? I shouldn't be getting involved. She has her whole career ahead of her, and He stopped. It's better this way. The words hit her like a door closing. Whatever had been flickering between them wasn't in her head, but he'd already chosen distance. The next morning, Ava walked into HR with her choice ready. I'd like to request a transfer to another department, she said. The manager looked surprised. That's sudden. You've been doing great under Mr. Whitaker. Ava offered a polite smile. I think it's time for a change. A small lie that felt necessary. Staying meant dragging out what couldn't happen. Waiting for something she couldn't ask for. She turned in the forms and left. Cole was a man who made decisions and moved on. That's how he built what he had. Control, precision, discipline. But after Ava transferred, something felt off. His office felt too quiet. Meetings turned flat. No one pushed back with her blend of grit and smart questions. He told himself it was better this way. If that was true, why did it feel wrong? 2 weeks passed. He only saw her in quick hallway moments. She nodded politely and kept moving. She kept her distance. And he let her. Until the afternoon, he saw her laughing with another man. He was crossing the marketing floor when he spotted her by the coffee machine, head tipped back, eyes bright, playfully bumping shoulders with Evan, a young executive with ambition written all over him, jealousy, sharp and hot. Cut through Cole before he could stop it. That evening, he found a reason to walk past her area. Ava was at her desk, reading a report, unaware he was watching. He cleared his throat. Bennett. She looked up, startled. For a beat, her eyes flickered with something, then cooled. Mr. Whitaker. His jaw tightened. So that's how it was now. Can we talk? She hesitated. I'm in the middle of something. It won't take long. She weighed him, sighed, and set down her pen. What is it? He didn't answer right away. Up close, he realized how much he'd missed the calm she brought into her room. Why did you transfer? She blinked, unprepared for that. You know why. Do I? His voice dropped. Because if you're going to say for a change of pace, I don't buy it. She let out a tired breath. I don't. Was it because of what you heard? He asked. She stilled. So, you know. He nodded. She gave a hollow laugh. Then you know I made the right call. His stomach turned. No, he said quietly. You didn't. She really looked at him then, like she was trying to find the truth in his face. He took a breath and finally said it. I tried to stay away, he admitted. I told myself it was right. Easier. But then you left and he exhaled. I realized I don't want easy. Her breath caught. For a moment, neither spoke. Cole, she whispered, what are we doing? He held her gaze. I don't know, he said. I only know that every day without you on my team feels wrong. And every time I see you smiling with someone else. He clenched his jaw. I hate it. I hate that I feel this, he added, voice rougher now. But I do. She looked down, fingers tight on the desk edge. You're you, she started, and I'm just... Don't, he said, steady. Don't tell me you're just anything. Doubt still tugged at her. They came from different worlds. He was a CEO with power and reach. She was an intern at the start of something fragile. Could this be anything more than a risky idea? Cole seemed to read the hesitation, because what he did next left no space for guessing. Part two, everyone heard it before she could breathe. The cafeteria went silent as Cole Whitaker stepped through the doorway, eyes locked on Ava Bennett, like there was no one else in the room. Trays paused midair. Conversation stopped. Ava's stomach flipped. Not here. Not with half the company watching. But Cole didn't blink. Ava, he said, voice steady. I'm taking you to dinner tonight. Don't say no. Gasps rippled across the space. Is this real? Someone whispered. He never does. This, another murmured. Heat flooded Ava's face. Cole, you can't just... I can, he said, calm as ever. And I did. The buzz grew louder. Ava's pulse hammered. But Cole's voice dipped low, meant only for her. You can run if you want, he said. But I'm done running. The words hit her hard and true. For once, she didn't run. Later that day, an email sat in her inbox, sharp as a fork in the road. Subject, job offer, marketing associate. A top firm, big name, higher pay, faster growth. Everything she'd worked toward since college. She read it twice, then 3 times. This was the kind of offer that could change her path. But taking it meant leaving Cole. That evening, she stood across from him in his office, the skyline behind him in gold and blue. She had practiced different ways to say it, but the words came out small. I got an offer, she said. He set down his pen. An offer? She nodded. It's a great role. Better pay, more room to grow. He studied her face, then leaned back. That's incredible, Ava. His voice was even, but something flickered in his eyes. There's one thing, she added. I'd have to relocate. Quiet filled the room. Cole's jaw tightened. How far? Across the country. He didn't try to talk her out of it. He didn't push. He didn't say, stay. After a long beat, he said, you should take it. Breath caught in her throat. Cole, this is what you worked for, he said softly. You earned it. Pain pressed against her ribs. What about us? He held her gaze, and for the first time since she'd known him, he looked unsure. I would never ask you to give up your dreams for me, he said. The words were gentle. They also felt like goodbye. Is this what you want? She whispered. He ran a hand through his hair. No, he admitted, but it's what's right for you. Tears stung her eyes. She'd been ready for a fight. She hadn't been ready for him to let her go. On her last night in the city, he came to her apartment one more time. They stood in the doorway, both quiet, neither sure how to end something that didn't feel finished. He broke the silence first. I'm proud of you, he said. Her voice shook. I don't want to say goodbye. He tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, the smallest smile ghosting his mouth. Then don't, he said. Say, see you later. She let out a breath that sounded like a laugh and a sob at once, then wrapped her arms around him and held on. He held on, too. For a moment, it felt like time stopped. Then it started again, and she had to go. On paper, everything was perfect. The new job was exciting. The pay was great. Her projects got attention. People called her a rising star. But inside, she felt hollow. At first, she blamed the adjustment. New city, new routines, new team. Yet weeks became months, and the ache stayed. Each morning, she woke with a small weight in her chest. Each night, she knew exactly what it was. Cold. She tried to move forward. She went on dates. She stayed late at work. She filled her calendar. None of it touched the empty place he'd left. Because the truth was simple. Her heart hadn't traveled with her. It was still back where she'd met him. On that crowded bus, on that borrowed shoulder, in those quiet moments when he saw her and stood by her. It was a plain Thursday when she found the envelope on her desk. No sender listed. Her name written in neat, familiar handwriting. Hands shaking, she opened it. Inside was a single bus ticket and a note. I'm still waiting for you on that bus. Don't fall asleep this time. Ava's breath caught. The room blurred for a second. Then she moved. She grabbed her coat and ran. The city buzzed around her, horns, voices, the rush of wind as cars passed. She didn't slow. She reached the stop, breathless from the sprint and from hope. He was there, standing by the sign with his hands in his pockets, a calm look on his face like he had known she'd come. She stopped short. You, she said, half a laugh, half a cry. The corner of his mouth lifted. Me. She shook her head, still catching her breath. You actually sent me a bus ticket. He shrugged, almost sheepish. Seemed fitting. She laughed again, a little wild with relief. Then the truth hit. You let me go, she whispered, eyes burning. His face softened. I thought it was what you needed. She took a step closer. And now... He didn't look away. Now I know what I need, he said. You. What about the company? The whispers. I don't care, he said, voice steady. Not about titles. Not about noise. Not about any of it. He took another step, close enough to touch. I care about you. She had spent months convincing herself they were from different worlds. That love was enough. That reality would crush them. Standing there with him, she realized she'd been wrong. Love had always been the only truth that mattered. She didn't wait another second. She threw her arms around him. He exhaled, holding her like he had no plans to ever let go again. People brushed past him. Traffic rolled. The city moved on. They didn't. In the place where everything had started, Ava finally felt like she was where she belonged. Days later, the office hum returned to normal, at least on the surface. In truth, Lil had stayed the same. Cole set clear guardrails with HR and legal. Separate teams, clear reporting lines, no conflict of interest. He followed every rule. He also refused to hide the simple fact that he cared for her. The whispers still came, of course, but they faded when faced with the obvious. Ava's work stood on its own. She'd earned her place long, before anyone knew their story. When people tried to reduce her to rumors, reality didn't bend. One afternoon, Graham Voss cornered her after a meeting. Tone cooler than usual. Your model beat last quarter's forecast, he said. It sounded like a complaint, but wasn't. Ava didn't gloat. It was a team effort, she replied. His mouth pressed into a thin line. Keep backing it up with results, he said, and walked away. It wasn't warm. It was respect. She'd take it. Sometimes the smallest moments landed the hardest. Like the day she found Cole alone again in that quiet conference room. The city stretched beyond the glass. The same worn photo sat by his hand. She didn't ask. He didn't offer. Instead, he said, when my father died, I decided I'd build something no one could take from me. He kept his eyes on the skyline. I built it, but I forgot the part where I actually lived inside it. She slid her hand over his. You remember now. He looked at her then, and whatever he'd been carrying eased a little. Not because she fixed it, but because he wasn't carrying it alone. Their work moved forward, too. The project they'd started together hit its final stage. Ava stood at the front of the room. Same glass walls, same long table, different woman. She walked through the story. Where the brand stood, what Gen Z actually cared about, why quick spikes weren't loyalty, and how the new plan pulled people in and kept them. She showed proof. Stronger attention, better lifetime value, steadier growth. When she finished, the room held a long, quiet beat. Then Cole spoke. Approved, he said, and the decision carried down the line like a switch flipping. After, in the hallway, he didn't say, good job, like a boss. He smiled at her like a man who knew what it took for her to get here and felt lucky to stand close enough to see it. It wasn't all perfect. There were hard days, sharp comments, messy headlines that filled a news cycle and then vanished. They learned when to step back, when to hold the line, when to laugh it off. When Ava felt small, Cole reminded her of the numbers she'd nailed and the rooms she'd earned. When Cole felt the old weight of being the man in charge, Ava reminded him he could share the load and still be strong. They didn't fix each other. They changed with each other and got better because of it. On the anniversary of the night, she fell asleep on his shoulder. They rode the same bus line after work. No suits, no pressure. Ava found an empty seat near the middle and sat, then patted the cushion beside her. Think this spot is safe? She teased. Depends, Cole said, sitting close. You planning to drool on me again? She smacked his arm. I did not. He raised an eyebrow. History says otherwise. She tried to glare. It turned into a smile. Outside, the city flickered by, all movement and light. Inside, the quiet felt easy. You know, he said softer, when you fell asleep that night, I almost moved. Why didn't you? He looked down at her, eyes gentle. Maybe I already knew. She leaned her head on his shoulder, on purpose this time. Me too. Months later, after another long day, Ava got home to find a small box on her kitchen counter. There was no ring inside, not yet, just a folded map of the city with a single route traced in ink and a note tucked underneath, for the places we almost missed and the ones we won't. She held it and smiled the kind of smile you don't fake. She didn't need grand speeches or fireworks. She just needed what she had, something true, steady, and chosen. Because sometimes love isn't about perfect timing or flawless plans. It's about choosing each other in the middle of noise, in the middle of fear, in the middle of real life. They came from different worlds. One an intern who wanted a shot, the other a CEO with everything to lose. In the end, none of that mattered. Real love finds a way. When it does, you hold it with both hands. If this story moved you, tap like, share it with a friend, and subscribe to Drammy X Stories. We bring you heartfelt tales about love, grit, and the ties that pull us back to each other. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that stays with you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.